Okie dokie. In this video, we're looking at Chapter 5, homework problem number 22. Let's scan through it and talk through what we know. Brenda Last, undergraduate business major, is attempting to determine her course schedule for the fall semester. She is considering 7 different 3-credit hour courses, which are shown. So we are given the average hours per week she expects to have to devote to each course, and her minimum expected grade in each course. Okay, so we have all that information in this chart here. They say an A earns 4 credits, quality credits per hour. B earns 3, C is 2, D is 1. So what they're talking about is like GPA. So like a minimum grade of B means a minimum grade of a 3.0. A C would be a 2.0, 2.0, 1.0, 2.0, 1.0, and 3.0. Yeah. So those are all the minimum grade, quality credits, whatever you want to call it. Brenda wants to select a schedule that will provide at least a 2.0 GPA. To remain a full-time student, she must blah, blah, blah. She must take at least 12 credit hours. They say that principles, corporate finance, quantitative methods, and Java are all math, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't want to take more than 2 of these courses, so no more than 2 of those. To remain on schedule, she needs to take at least 3 of the following courses. Bam, 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 or bam. She wants to develop a course schedule that will minimize the number of hours she has to work each week. So we've kind of, the way the emphasis in my voice is going, we've like emphasized a few different constraints and things we need to discuss here. So the first thing I'll talk about is this here. The biggest thing to note is that X1, X2, X3, all the way to X7 will represent all the different classes that we could possibly take, or that Brenda could possibly take. And the most important thing to remember is, or to keep in mind, with a situation like this, we have a 0-1 integer model. So what that means is the x's, the x1s through x7s, could either equal 0 or 1 as a result. We either take the class or we do not take the class. We cannot have x1 equals 10 because you're not taking the one class 10 times. That just doesn't make sense. So x1 through x7 are going to either be 0 or 1 in the end. That's the idea behind the 0-1 model. So what we say is that, or what it says is that she must take at least 12 credit hours. So how many classes would that be? If each class, they tell us, is 3 credit hours, then to take at least 12 credit hours, she needs to take at least 4 classes. So what that means is the sum of all the classes she's taking should be greater than or equal to 4. Keep in mind that x1s through x7s are either going to be 1s or 0s. So if she takes the class, that's a 1. If she does not take the class, it equals 0. So what I mean is, like, if she takes class 1, x1 equals 1. If she does not take class 2, x2 equals 0. She needs to take at least 4 classes. So the sum of these should be at least greater than or equal to 4. All right, next one. Let's think about where this comes from. So less than or equal to 2 would come from the no more than 2 of the math classes. So principles, corporate finance, quantitative, Java, blah, blah, blah. These, oh goodness, I lost a lot of my stuff here. Let's try this again. Oh, they're all back now. Okay. So these classes, principles is X2, corporate finance is X3, quantitative methods X4, and Java is X6. So you can see that I've added those up, X2, X3, X4, X6, and it says she's taking no more than 2 of those courses, so less than or equal to 2. So what I'm doing, as you can probably tell so far, is just kind of writing down what the constraints would be, just writing them out by hand before I go in and try to make sense of it in Excel. Okay? So this next one, we have x1, x2, x6, x7 greater than or equal to 3. Hopefully it's clear that that comes from this part here where they say she needs to take at least 3 of the following: management, principles, Java, and English. So those are just management, principles, Java, English, X1, X2, X6, X7. She needs to take at least 3 of them, so greater than or equal to 3. The hours, the number of hours she has to work each week is what we're trying to minimize. This is our objective function. And so let's look at this. Average hours per week for the first class would be 5. So if she ends up taking class 1 or X1, she's going to have to work 5 hours. So 5 hours times X1. If she's taking X1, X1 is going to be equal to 1. Let's say she does not take X2, that means X2 would be equal to 0. And so you would multiply the 10 by the 0 to show that you don't have to work it all in that class. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is multiply 5 by X1, 10 by X2, 8 by X3, and so on to calculate the number of hours that they will have to put in once she has decided which classes she's taking and not taking. So because X1s, X2s, X3s, and so on are going to be 1s and 0s, this is the formula to calculate the total number of hours. Okay. What else do I got here? So it's important to, again, note that X1 through 7 are integers. Namely, they are integers of either 0 or 1. So less than or equal to 1, greater than 0, equal to 0, whatever. Last thing, she wants to earn at least a 2.0 GPA. Let's see if these numbers come back. So if these are the classes and these are the grades that will come up from each of these classes, we need to think about, like, how do you calculate a GPA? You calculate a GPA by adding up all the grades you've gotten in your classes. So by adding up grades, I mean, like, if you got 4 A's and a B, you would add up 4 4.0s plus a 3.0. And then after you added up all those numbers, you divide by however many classes you took. So if you had 4 classes and another class, you had 5 total classes. So you'd add up 4 4s plus the 3, divide by 5, and then that would give you your GPA. So how we would calculate our GPA is taking the grade we're getting times whatever class we're taking. Like, so 3 times X1 plus 2 times X2 plus 2 times X3, and so on and so forth. That'll give you the total. Then you divide by however many classes you took, which will come from just the sum of X1 plus X2 plus X3 all the way to X7. And that has to be at least a 2.0, so greater than or equal to 2. So here's what I mean. These are all the like minimum grades, so 3, 2, all the way to 3, and then times X7. And then, so that's like the total number. And then you divide that by the number of classes you took, which is just the sum of X1 through X7. And that GPA average has to be greater than or equal to 2.0. All right, so that was a good explanation of the constraints and things like that. Let's see if we can talk about this a little bit in Excel. So let me get my keyboard here. All right. Notice the answers are already here. The ones and the zeros for the X1 through X7. The average study hours were just input. Minimum quality credits, all they've done here is just multiply what we had with the 3, the 2, the 2, and so on. They multiplied them by 3 because technically, like, 3 is the number of quality hours you get per credit. And so if each class is 3 credits, then they multiplied all these values by 3. In my opinion, it's a little unnecessary because all the classes have the same number of hours, credit hours. So because they're all 3, you don't need to, like, worry about them all being 3. Like, it's the math's still going to work out. Like, if some were 3 credit hours and some were like 4 or 5 credit hours, you'd have to take it into account. But in this case, I don't know. It's kind of pointless in my opinion. Anyway, minimum GPA is a 2. Minimum credit hours 12. They need, so I think these are the minimums here. Sorry. So minimum GPA. Oh, that's the annoying thing. Yeah, the organization here I don't really agree with. I don't really know what's going on here. Because they have like minimum GPA over here. I don't know. So minimum GPA is 2. Minimum credit hours is 12. Computing, you don't want more than 2. And then I guess these are really just like the boundaries for the inequalities that we had set up, more or less. Kind of. I don't know. I wouldn't sweat it too much. The big thing is we are calculating this. This is the total number of hours spent on all of our classes each week. So it'd be like the number of hours times whether you're taking the class or not. So ones or zeros. So this times this plus this times this plus this times this all the way through. So that's the sum product. Something like that roughly. There's one part of this with like the GPA that I'm like not fully understanding of, but I'll just talk through what I know. We're minimizing the total number of hours. So that's our objective, minimum total number of hours. Changing variable cells are just all the ones and zeros here. So you would have highlighted all these. Now the C5 through C11, the X1 through X7, in other words, had to be integers and they had to be less than or equal to 1. In other words, they had to be zeros and ones. Then they set D15, 16, D15, 16 greater than or equal to C15 and 16. Yeah, this part I'm not fully understanding. I kind of get this part where it's the 16 where you have to have at least 12 credit hours. So this cell right here has to be greater than or equal to this cell right here. That's pretty clear, but there was something going on with like this stuff here. Something going on with C5, C8, C10, and C7, or technically C11, sorry. So like X1, X4, X6, X7. I didn't really understand, I'll be honest, but I'll keep going through explaining what I know. D17. Okay, yeah, so this value, the 1 here, D17, had to be less than or equal to the 2, so a max of 2 math hours. And then this value here, the 3, had to be greater than or equal to the 3. She had to take at least 3 of the prereq classes. So that was that. And then the last thing, E15, had to be greater than or equal to, I think I added that personally. I think I added that after the fact, but so I don't know if yours has that or not. Anyway, once we get solved, we get 30 hours. That's about the best I can do on this problem. I hope that helps a little bit. If you have questions, let me know.